No report, no assessment will be able to read you accurately. So you are the expert on your life, you are the expert on how you function and everything.
Hey squirrels, welcome to ADHD, where ADHD isn't some clinical diagnosis, it's just life. I'm AV, your always honest tour guide through this beautiful mess. Over here, we're not about fixing yourself. We're about figuring out how to actually enjoy your life as you are. So grab a snack and let's go. Hey squirrels, welcome back to ADHD. Let's get into it. I am joined today by Mineela Chand. Mineela is a leadership coach and executive function specialist who works with executives, founders, and entrepreneurs with ADHD. And she does it in a way I've honestly not seen enough of. She has spent 25 years recognizing patterns across thousands of brains, and she built that expertise into a 20-minute ADHD-friendly proprietary assessment, the executive function inventory that maps exactly how your specific brain works across the 12 executive functions, where you're strong, where you've quietly built workarounds, and which ones are draining you toward burnout. She doesn't do the motivation thing. She doesn't do accountability. She engineers systems that are built around how your brain actually works, which we love here. We love a good system. And she has a clear beginning, middle, and end to her work, which, as someone who has encountered a lot of coaches in this space, is honestly rarer than it should be. Mineela, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, you totally have the profile of somebody with ADHD. Like it is so obvious. Okay. But your profile too was like really, really, really interesting. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's first talk about your executive functions and how that turned out. Okay, so as you were going through the inventory and everything, you probably noticed that there are 12 executive functions, right? And so what the inventory does, and there's like all kinds of calculations and processes in the background and everything, and how this report, is written and all of that that you don't see on the report. But each of those executive functions are dumped into 3 buckets, okay? So one bucket is, this is a strength, I'm really good at this, I don't have to think about it, it's like something that I naturally kind of gravitate towards, especially when things get hard, and it gives me dopamine because I feel like I'm being productive and all of that kind of stuff, and your problem solving was the thing. Okay, so
Right.
I am guessing that you spend a lot of time kind of designing things, researching things, looking for pattern recognition, vibe coding. That was something that you did with last time. And I'm guessing that you have a lot more products and services that are possible that you are actually launching, right? More
Yes,
ideas,
because
more ideas.
I intentionally slow me down so that I don't kill my team
Right.
because I really need them. And our main product is the team and that like ability to slow down. So I have my binder, my ideas binder, and it has all of its subcategories,
Yeah.
frameworks and
Mhm.
systems, offers and business models, content and shows, tools and templates, and wildcard. That one's my favorite.
Mhm.
And I handed it all over to operations. And then when I'm allowed to do stuff, she'll send it to me and I get to pick.
Right, right. So I have a parking lot too, and sometimes I call it someday maybe, right?
Yeah.
When I have time. So problem solving came out as a strength. Okay. So the next bucket is what I call adaptive. Adaptive is all of those executive functions where, throughout our lifetime, we have built skills, right? Because somebody has said, you need to be on time, you need to hand in things on time, you need to, have a focus and all of that.
I don't have a problem with
Yeah,
that. I don't
exactly.
struggle with that. I have a
Right?
secret. What do you mean?
And
Struggle.
yeah, so all of the things that are adaptive for you are it's kind of like in that bucket, right? So metacognition, right? Metacognition is thinking about your thinking, right? Emotional management, planning and prioritization, cognitive flexibility, response inhibition, goal directed persistence. Okay. So all of these things are functioning really well, but they take you a little bit of effort to do those things because you have systems in place. They're not something that come naturally like the problem solving. Okay. And they're also vulnerable under load. So when you get stressed out, those are the things that'll kind of fall into the this is hard and a challenge bucket. Okay. But when you've got your systems figured out, you're doing really well, you're not hungover or whatever is going on, right? Like you're able to
I just went to bed too late. I watched Batman instead of going to
Yeah,
sleep at
exactly.
midnight like I should have.
Yeah, so they're functioning well with a little bit of effort, but they don't drain you, right? But if you do it too much, it'll lead to a little bit of burnout. So here's where you are actually challenged. Okay. So 5 things. And this wasn't a surprise to me because you have been very open about the fact that you are ADHD. Okay. And these are the ones that tend to come up quite often in ADHD. So your challenge spaces, 5 of them is, and I'm going to send you this report. I never let anybody sit with the report by themselves because I don't want them, kind of,
Yeah.
whatever, right?
To do it
And
together first.
and just and just as a frame for you to think about, okay? No report, no assessment will be able to read you accurately. So you are the expert on your life, you are the expert on how you function and everything. So everything in any report is up to you to decide whether it fits or not and to argue with, okay? So these are just kind of suggestions and what came out of the scoring. So your challenges came out as organization. Okay. So organization is where did I put stuff? Right. And can I find it really quickly when I am looking for things? So when your organization is off, it's kind of like, I need to do this thing, but where did I put that file? Where did I put the stapler? Where did I put, oh God, I need to put new ink into the printer. Where the heck? I know I bought some, but I don't know where it is. And your time is taken up kind of.
That's my
Yeah,
life.
okay. So organization was a challenge, okay? And this is in order of, like, the highest score to the lowest score within the challenge category, okay? So next was this
This is highest, like, most
most
and lowest.
no, it's
Or
the
no.
least challenge of all of your challenge to the most challenge of all.
Damn it. Alright, okay, let's go.
Okay.
Hustling up. Thank you for that.
So
I
we're
appreciate
we're
that.
we're cutting down,
Yeah.
okay? So organization. Next is sustained attention. So sustained attention is basically how distractible am I? Can I stay focused once I focus on doing something, right? That came out as a challenge, and that's a little bit harder than organization for you. And you get very easily distracted. Probably, I'm guessing because your problem solving is so high, you're easily distracted by solving a problem, right? Something will come up
Yeah.
and
'Cause, like, there's a better way to
yeah,
do what I'm doing and now
yeah, now you're problem solving instead of actually doing the
Yeah.
thing, right?
Totally.
So sustained attention has to do with distractibility. So the next one that is a little bit more of a challenge is time management. Okay. So time management is not just about am I showing up? Am I not? Is it now? Not now? It's also about that internal sense of the passage of time. So I don't know if you've noticed
Mhm.
this, but sometimes time feels like it is dragging on and 15 minutes feels
Yeah,
like
time is
hours.
weird.
And then other times a whole day feels like, oh my God, wait a second, why can't I not see anything? Oh, because it's dark outside and I need to turn the lights on. Right.
Right.
Not that that's happened to me, but, you know. So it's a matter of kind of sensing the passage of time. It's also about being on time and things like that, like tracking time. One of the places that I find that with time management founders are really, really struggling is how long does it take me to do things? So generally,
Yeah.
a lot of it is they don't give enough time to things or they give too much time and then, I can't remember what that law is, but whatever you give however much space you give something, that's what that space will
Take it up.
take up, right? So that's a real problem. And so when time management is off, you kind of look at a task of things and you don't know how long things take. And sometimes they feel a lot bigger than they are. And then it feels overwhelming. And what do? You kind of you close your task list and you walk away from it and watch the Batman movie, right? So it's a challenge for you. And next would be task initiation. So task initiation. Okay.
I can't believe that's not number 1. That's crazy.
If we're talking about what's the worst, right? In order of
Mhm.
what's the worst, this would be number 2,
I
right?
know, I
This would
can't
be
believe it's
number
not number
2.
1.
So task initiation is, can I get started? Can I pull the trigger in terms of what I need to do, and can I get started without distracting, without procrastination, without, all of that stuff. And task initiation is like the engine that makes a business go. If you cannot
I know.
initiate tasks, you're not gonna be able to do anything in your business, right? Forget about the problem solving, forget about all your cool ideas, forget about, marketing, everything. If you cannot sit down and do the thing, this is where, and a lot of founders are burnt out because this is where they struggle the most, because they don't have things in place to kind of trigger the start, right?
Yeah. I am so good at protecting myself from that I built a literal entire business around not initiating.
Yeah. So we'll get to that because, yeah, we'll get to that when we get to the appendix, because I put in like a particular question in there. So the number one drum roll is working memory. Okay.
Oh my god, yeah.
Working memory. Okay. So working
Gosh,
memory.
yeah.
So working memory, you want to think of it as like a blackboard where you can fit only a certain number of post-its, right? So the more information that somebody gives you, the blackboard gets filled up with more and more post-its. Okay. And if you put too many things in that spot, because it's very finite real estate, if you put too many things, something has to drop off. Okay. So when we're talking about a lot of these systems and scaffolding on all of that kind of stuff, you have to externalize a lot of things, right? Because it's not going to come from me. Task initiation is not going to come from me. Working memory is not going to come from me. I need to create systems that are outside, that are going to trigger the thoughts for me, trigger the memories
Yeah.
for me, and have it outside. So a lot of people use things like notebooks, ClickUp, sometimes they have their VA kind of say, "Hey, this is what you're up to today, and this is what needs to get done. Here's the priorities because you got a meeting, so and so's, all of that." So you have a business where you are thinking about ADHD and VA, right? And how do I help my VAs understand the ADHD brain so that they can actually support the people who are struggling with ADHD? And clearly you are doing the same thing.
I'm the
Yeah,
gateway.
so exactly. And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about is sometimes the scaffolding that the VA needs to give is different depending on what the executive function mix is, right?
Totally.
You gotta kinda, like, pay attention to how they're functioning, what's working, what's not working, and then help them adjust to what they're doing. So, yeah, so you were very strategic, very visionary. However, the operational stuff is all the stuff that
Rough.
you were, like, really, really had a hard time with. So, I find it really interesting that you're a founder who builds better systems for other people while running your own business on cognitive scaffolding that doesn't just that doesn't completely match the demands that that you've kind of put on yourself, right? So when we look at these numbers in terms of the 3 buckets, one of the things that I tell people is this is not written in stone. You can build scaffolding around and move the challenged scores up into adaptive, right? The challenge stuff just means, let's just work on this a little more, or leverage your strengths to work on that. So the next, any questions about, like, that part of it? No,
No.
fits, right? Okay, because 'cause you're like, "How did
Yeah.
you know?"
I mean, yeah,
So,
it's
the
definitely
next part of it is, so this report is specifically for leaders and founders who are working with other people, who are running businesses, who have, like, really big responsibilities, right? So, what I did was I took 10 of the most prominent leadership capacities that organizations tend to agree on, things like models values and demonstrates integrity, responsiveness, they're very results oriented and achieves commitments, things like that. So there's 10 of them. And what I do is I take your executive functions and map them onto those capacities and tell you where your leadership capacities are strong, where, again, they are adequate, right? So the same 3 buckets, and where you might want to kinda work on and develop in terms of leadership development and training because it's your executive function profile is putting those things at risk,
Yeah.
especially when you are under stress. And what organization is there right now where leaders are working where there's no stress? Right?
Not too stressed.
So, the places where you are at risk, okay, I'm just gonna talk about those things, okay, like, 'cause you're doing a lot of the other thing really, really well. So there's 10 of them, and there's only 2 that are at risk for you, okay? Your vision is really, really clear about what you wanna accomplish, right? Because you can't problem solve without having, like, a vision of what this thing looks like that you want it to look like. So it's very clear. However, translating the vision into consistent
Yep.
follow through, right, is where
100%.
the friction accumulates for you.
I have a whole other person
Yeah.
that does that for me.
Yep. Do it.
It's not me. I have a whole other
Mhm.
person who works alongside me who, like, that there's a very clear handoff between strategy and, like, this is what things should look
Yeah.
like, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is what it could be if everything were, and then it gets handed off to
Absolutely. Yeah.
operations where it goes down to
Yeah.
reality. Because that's not where I want to live.
Mhm.
It's not my
Yeah.
strength. Don't want to
Yeah.
do it. I'm bad at
So
it. I would like to be able to support her better
mhm.
because I think that that's my duty to her
Right. Right.
and to the
Yeah.
business.
And yeah. So the next part at risk, right, is the urgency. You feel a lot of urgency internally, but
Yeah.
activating that into initiating tasks and stuff and with time tracking challenges and gaps, right? There's like a lag, right, between between the urgency and actually getting to the urgency, right? So
Right. That also, I'm not allowed to be in charge of any prioritization.
mhm,
However, the leadership gap still
mhm.
exists, right? Like maybe the operations gap doesn't exist, but the
The
leadership gap
leadership gap
exists.
exists.
Yeah, as much
Okay.
as you want to give me.
So,
I will.
yeah. So when you're looking at it from an organizational perspective, right, which this section is about, right? Like how I put it down was strong self-awareness compensates for this, but reactive moments under stress may undercut credibility, right? So it's because the first thing in a leadership position in an organization, which will like create a black mark on you, is you treating people poorly and yelling at them and them not even being able to
Okay, so
yeah,
I
like
never, ever,
like
ever, ever, ever
people
yell at
not
anyone.
being able to decipher the tone, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually, we compensate for that
Yeah.
by intentionally
Yeah.
compensating for that. Because we work with people who have ADHD,
Mhm.
a lot of people are going to interact with
Mhm.
you in a way that, like, they are going to sound like an
Right.
asshole. And sometimes they're being an asshole. And that's where we set a
Yeah.
boundary. And sometimes they just sound like they're being an
Right.
asshole. And, like, that's cool. That's just the way they
Mhm.
sound. It's also why we only have women on the team. They can handle it. Our male employees never could. They just
Really?
couldn't get over
That's
the
interesting.
tone
Yeah.
of, like, the
Mm.
interaction, and that piece is really important in, like, creating this shame-free environment that we rely on. You have to be able to show up the way that you are. Now, if you're being a jerk, no. You can never yell at
Yeah.
somebody. How could you be so stupid for blah, blah, blah?
Mhm.
No.
Mm.
You might, like, send a message that's like, "We spoke about this already." Maybe that's a little bit shorter than you, like, intend it to be,
Mhm.
right? And there could be, like, there's, like, nicer ways of
Yeah.
saying it, like, there's ways of
Yeah.
adding on layers. But one of the goals is, like, because I'm also autistic, removing the emotional labor to, like,
I
soften myself
totally get that. Yeah.
by
Yeah.
training the team, like,
Yeah.
out the
Yeah.
ass.
So, how I'm hearing it, right, and how I'm understanding this is that as an entrepreneur, you have control over all of that, right? But if you're an employee in an organization, that's much more difficult to,
Totally not.
because that goes on your performance review, right? Needs to
Right.
change tone, needs to work on executive presence, needs to work on gravitas and culture, right? So that's the kind of language that you
I
that
was
you hear.
fortunate
Yeah,
to work my corporate
Mhm.
career in Israel,
Oh.
where everyone's a jerk and everyone has
Mm.
PTSD. So, like, when I show up in a boardroom and some army dude is like, blah, 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 and I'm like, technically, da 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 da. They're like, ooh, if I were ever in corporate
Yeah.
America, and like that's why I started this business,
Mhm.
chew me up and spit me out in 5
Yeah.
seconds. Cause like I would burn out in 5 seconds flat.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
can't. I'm like getting
Yeah.
stressed even thinking about
That
that.
okay,
It's
so
not my life.
breathe, breathe,
God.
right? It's not your life.
So
When we're talking about leadership and founders and stuff, right? There's your internal team where you can control the culture and train your team in terms
yeah,
of how you function, and this doesn't mean this, and, all of that, right? But when you're a founder who is looking for investment with VCs who are selling to customers or customer facing, or doing a lot of presentations, or, interacting with people at networking events and stuff, right? That can be a real problem. If the stress level goes up, that you become a lot more reactive, which means how do you scaffold that? You manage the stress level so you make sure that when you're at a conference, you are getting enough sleep, that you are managing how much interaction you have with people, and kind of paying attention to where's my energy level right now. And I better go get some lunch and get some water before I like, because I'm going to lose it. Right. So this whole report is about here's what might happen if your stress load goes up. And this is why it's so important for you to manage your stress. Right.
yeah,
Because you're at risk here. So problem solving, great strength, right? Drives, curiosity, creative reframing, all of that stuff, all that good stuff. So big picture thinking, big picture is a genuine strength, but detail retention and sustained focus require scaffolding. So we talked about that a little bit, right?
mhm.
Problem solving again.
Yeah, as long as I'm in it, I'm
Yeah.
good. But if I'm out of it, like also autism does compensate for that a
Mm,
lot because the details are in
mhm,
there and they are all together there. I have to access
mhm.
it, and that's getting
Yeah.
blocked by
Yeah.
ADHD.
And then another strength, right? Demonstrates prudent risk taking. So the combination of problem solving, and I think your metacognition score was higher too. Both of those together support sound risk reasoning. So you know the difference between what's going to work, what do I need to kind of before I launch something or buy something or something for the business, you're really thinking through like how risky is this, right? So
Yeah.
it's informed risk taking, right? Which is what business owners do, is informed risk taking. Let's see. Deep commitment and insight to championing people, right? We've talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like my
Yeah, you like your people.
Mhm.
However, where you might be struggling is initiating the structured follow through, right?
Oh, yeah. I can do
That's
that.
like a friction point for you, right? Like,
I literally don't have the
yeah.
capacity to do that ever, and if other people didn't do it, it wouldn't
Yeah.
get done.
So you've got things in place to actually scaffold that, because, we've had previous conversations where your VAs come to you and say, "Hey, I need more information. I didn't understand this. Can you expand on that? How are you imagining this?" So they know to come to you, and that it's okay to come to you, right? So another thing that you've put
Yeah,
into place. So your transparency and communication, okay? Based on the scores, your intent is very high, okay? However, working memory gaps and impulsive disclosure can look like inconsistency to people outside of your organization, right?
totally. And inside the
Oh, okay.
organization.
Alright.
Just because, like, it's a very common pattern that what I consider iterative, others consider radical pivots. So, again, I love a big picture. I love a reverse engineer. I'm gonna micro pivot all the live long day.
Mhm.
But other humans don't process as quickly as I do. So they're still stuck like 3 pivots
Mhm.
back or 3 iterations back, and they're like, "What the fuck is
Mhm.
happening?" And I'm
Mhm.
good. Like, everything in my mind, everything that we're doing is still the
Yeah.
same, and that also we had to identify as a specific communication gap that was occurring in which the team thought that, like, the update of the thought process meant a shift in
Mhm.
direction, in practical execution
Mhm.
direction. Nay, nay.
Yeah.
You are boots on the ground. The content remains the content. The graphics remain the graphics. The emails remain the email. All that stuff remains exactly the same. Maybe like I'm at what we're talking about, it's only at my level, which is only the strategy level, only the vision level. It's about like sharpening what we're doing, who we're talking to, how we're talking to them. It does not trigger any activity on your side. And that was like a massive gap that we
Yeah.
had to break
Yeah.
down and put specifically into the training as well, because we talk
Yes.
through our iteration.
Yes.
It's going to happen. That does not mean do
Mhm.
anything. No, your job is to say no. Your job is to say stop and like wait before you think that it's a change. What is the actual implication of what I'm
Mhm.
saying? If there is none, carry
Right,
on.
right.
If there is one, flag
Yeah.
it.
So, I ran into that with my person as well, right? Like, talking through things, and at every once in a point, she got really frustrated, and then she said, "I don't understand. You're saying yes here and then no here, and then I don't have we made a decision or not?" And I said, "You know what? I am just talking through the ideas and the possibilities." Right? And so now how I structure that conversation with her is we're discussing right now. We're not making any decisions. We're
Mhm.
discussing because we're thinking about kind of how to make this thing better. Okay. It's just a discussion.
Right.
We're throwing around ideas, brainstorming, iterating, all of that. And then at the end of it, I'll be like, I think this is the decision that we need to make. Let's talk about implementing that, what changes that would mean, right? So I have to kind of frame my thinking so that she can follow my thinking. No, we're not making
Totally.
discussions. We're not making decisions. We're having a discussion. Now we're making a decision, right? Because she was, I could see her head spinning. She's like, "Did we just make a decision?" And she'd
Right.
write it down, and then I'd say something else, and then she'd cross it off, and then write something else down, and I'm like,
Well, that's the challenge of working with a singular
"Yes,
person. So, like,
yeah,
when I'm talking to we're almost always brainstorming.
yeah."
When I'm talking to sales, we're making
Mm.
decisions. If there's brainstorming with sales, I need to let them know
Right,
that we're brainstorming.
right.
And like, there's meetings for that. I'm not allowed to just talk about stuff whenever I want to talk about stuff,
Mhm.
unless I pull someone into a meeting and ask them, "Do you have time to talk to me about blah, blah?" Or I'm talking to my assistant who will then disseminate the information as needed. But there is a literal layer of executive functioning between me and the rest of the world so that she can like disseminate
Yeah,
information
yeah,
appropriately. And I don't want to fucking
yep,
deal with it.
yeah. That's
I don't want
that's
it. I don't
how
want it.
that's
I
how
don't want it.
organizational planning prioritization process
Yeah,
starts. So,
ew.
like,
Yeah. Ew, ew,
yeah,
yeah.
here's my idea, go run with it and, make it all shiny,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so clearly we can talk a lot about this. So the 3
Yeah.
developmental priorities that I picked for you, right?
People don't like hearing this stuff about themselves. This is so validating. I love it.
A lot of people find it validating. I just don't leave people with a report by themselves because, you know,
Yeah, it makes
I
sense.
don't know people deeply at that level where I know what they can take in or not. And a lot of people assume that these assessments are like, this is who I am. And it's not. It's like,
Mhm.
this is what I'm seeing in the scores. Let's tweak it.
Right.
So
Also, it is who you are maybe right now, and maybe you want to change it, and maybe you don't want to change it, and maybe like Alisto exists, and maybe coaches exist. Like every single one of my clients needs to do this executive profile.
okay.
Mhm.
So, developmental priorities,
Learning to figure
what
out what
what I set out for you, right, is from most important developmental priority to least, because I know that matters to you,
Right.
right? Task initiation, okay, is number 1 because
Yeah.
without task initiation, your business is not gonna go, right? So, the suggestion was time bounded, have work blocks, but also have VA managed task queuing, right? So, they
So that
needed
all
yeah.
happens. I need to be able to initiate tasks
Mhm.
on my own. I need to be able to work on the weekend if I want to work on the weekend. Like I if I want to do it, I want to be able to
Right.
do it. And if I don't want to do it, then cool. I'm just
Mhm.
not gonna. But if I want to be able to. And I'm not sure what sauce is needed to like lubricate
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But it's also I spent so much time intentionally slowing myself down because what I'm building is the engine, it's the team, it's the thing that we need. And if I move the way I moved, I never would have been able to get the
Yep.
people to the place that I need them to be in order to be able to move with me the way I actually
Yeah.
move. But now we're at this shift point. I am but one client of Allisto. So the clients of
Mhm.
Allisto, at least from a strategy perspective and
Yep.
from like a heart to heart connection
Mhm.
perspective. But I'm still building all kinds of shit all the time and doing all kinds of stuff, things that I have the capacity and the skills and the resources to see through from A to Z that don't get seen through from A to Z because I can build 4 products a weekend. They can literally be up, launched, running properly by
Mhm.
Monday. I could have passive income out the ass. And I have all the skills that I need to be able to
Mhm.
do that. And I enjoy it when I'm doing it. And yet I don't do it.
Looking for suggestions on what you just asked me about in terms of, like, sitting down. Okay,
Yeah, 'cause
so
it's
what
I there's just like a
yeah,
pattern of breaking promises to
yeah.
myself I don't know how to
So
break.
so there's 3 things happening, right? You're making too many promises that you can't follow through on simply because of the number of promises that you're making, right? So there has to be some kind of planning and prioritization process that you put into place in terms of, "I have all of these ideas, but I need to choose 1 or 2 or 3," which is like, sits in that time block on my calendar where I work on new projects, right? Because one of the things that happens with new projects that I find a lot is that because they're so fun to work on, okay, it's what I call reward drift, right? And they're very rewarding. They give you dopamine. You feel like you're creating something out of nothing. It has nothing to do with the daily administrative boring tasks, right? So you get a lot of dopamine out of it. So it tends to drift into the rest of your work that needs to get done. Okay. Because it's just more dopaminergic, right? So so I would suggest experimenting with setting aside some time on your calendar, which is a block of time, maybe an afternoon or whatever, that you set aside for working on 1, 2, maximum 3 projects, okay? And you need to make decisions about how you choose those projects. Is it somehow connected to what I'm already doing? Is it an iteration of something that's already happening in the business? Is it something that is income producing? Okay, like that's a big one, right? If it's not income producing, it's just a hobby and it's fun, which is okay too, but be clear that it's a hobby and fun and you're not interested in making any money out of it, right? So you've got to set some guidelines in terms of how you pick the projects that you work on and create a launch pad for yourself. So a launch pad would look like,
Yeah.
these are the 3 projects that I'm working on, and this is the first
Yeah.
step, the smallest first step that's gonna get me started working on this. Because what I find
The launch pad is
right?
just
So
amazing.
one thing I find is that if you can start that small step, which requires just a little bit of effort to get started, and it could be I'm sitting in my chair and I'm turning my computer on and looking at the list of 3 projects, right? So it depends on how much of a start you need, like play around with the ignition a little bit.
Yeah.
So, one project that I'm gonna work on, and this is the step that's gonna get started, because I find that once the ignition turns, the motor starts running and you're just kind of, like, into it.
It's like even stupider, well, not stupider, but smaller. I have those blocks set aside,
Mhm.
but they are blank.
Yes, and that block
So
has
I need like a
yeah,
link.
that block
If it has a link, I'll click it because I otherwise I'm gonna choose cheaper
yeah,
dopamine because this dopamine has steps in
mhm,
between it. And I
yeah. So, never leave work blocks that look very, very vague, okay? And what I mean about very vague is, let's say you've got a block, "Work on my website." Okay? That is
yeah,
very vague, okay?
no, I need a link
Yeah,
in there. If I can't
yeah.
click it, I'm not
Put a
doing it.
link in there, put an instruction of what exactly is the goal of that time block, right? So, by the end of this time block, complete landing page for this product, complete homepage from this product, and one of the things that I tend to find is if you get started on that one thing and it gets done, people are like, the motor is running And then you're like, "Oh, I've got time to do this other thing too in the website." So, Launchpad and figure out what your ignition is, right? So, it's always experiments. Always,
It
always.
needs to be clear.
Yeah. If it needs to be clickable for you, then put a link in there to what? The sign
Yeah.
in to
And that's lazy because I literally just tell my assistant, these blocks need to be like all blocks need to be
Mhm.
clickable, and we will
Mhm.
figure out what that
Yeah, because
means.
all of a sudden you don't have to do anything, okay, and this is another principle, right?
Right.
If the ignition requires more than 1 click, okay, each
Yeah,
click
I'm not doing it.
is an opportunity for your brain to say, "This is too complicated, I don't wanna do it." Right? So, make it as few clicks as possible to get to the thing that you need to get to actually do the work, right? And having a click inside or a link or whatever that opens up the document, that opens up the website, that opens up whatever, it's fewer clicks for you, so less opportunity.
Right, which I know, but this is like the real importance of working with somebody who sees from the
Mhm.
outside, because I was 2/3 of the way there, but 2/3 of the way there isn't there. So, like, yes, I have the time blocks. Yes, I know what I'm working on. No, I don't have a launch
Right.
pad. So, like, that's cool. It's like training for the race and getting dressed and then sleeping in. Yeah. And when you work with somebody who's special, like, whose specialty is executive functioning, you allow yourself to be educated and relieve yourself of the pressure of having to figure it out all on
Mhm.
your own. Like, yeah, you could watch 100,000 TikToks and read
Mhm.
every article and piece it all together. Or you could watch 100,000 TikToks, read every article, piece it most of the way
Mhm.
together, and still get
Mhm.
stuck
Yeah.
2/3 of the way there.
Yeah. So, a really big part of how I work with people, right, is I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'm gonna give you experiments to run, right? Because I don't live your life. I don't, you're in a particular developmental stage. I know that, for example, you are in a particular season of life where you've got kids at a certain age and you wanna be with them and, all that kind of stuff, which that's going to make possible some things that may not be possible if your children were younger, or more could be possible if you didn't have, you know, elderly parents that you were taking care of or whatever, right? So your strategies need to change depending on how your life is changing as well. So the big thing for me is teaching people, be a good student of yourself. Like, understand your executive functions, understand how your brain works, paying attention to where the friction is, where the blocks are, and learning how to kind of sit in that place and be able to say, what's happening here? What made that hard? What's worked before? Like, what's working already? Like, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? What's working already? How can I iterate? What's changed in my life that maybe I need to tweak this a little bit, right? So, experiments, always experiments. Do not assume that if somebody gives you a tool or a strategy or something that it's going to work perfectly for you, 'cause you know what? A new tool gives you a lot of dopamine at the front end, and then when it becomes that place where you need to make it a habit, that's when things start getting harder, right? Yeah.
My EA just put, like, a new tab in my
Mhm.
inbox. So there's the unread stuff and the starred stuff and whatever, and she added, like, a for your
Mm.
response
Mhm.
section, and she chose, like, a dark purple background with a yellow rim and yellow writing. It's, like, very jarring. So I immediately cleared that
Yeah.
whole thing because I don't wanna see
Mhm.
that. There'll be a point
So
where if that list gets too long, I just won't open my
mhm.
inbox, or, like, it just won't stress me out anymore. And she said, like, "Oh, I'm so glad we found something that worked." And I said, "Yeah, we found something that worked for right now. And in 2 weeks when it stops working, you'll find
Mhm.
something new."
Mhm. Or you won't
Part
find
of your
something
job.
completely new, you'll tweak it a little bit to make it fresh,
Yeah, and
and
it'll
it'll
work
work
again,
again.
and it's fine.
So task initiation is your top priority. Second is working memory, okay? And you have to remember, I'm assuming that, you don't have the VA, all of that kind of stuff.
How do I make it bigger?
What do you mean make it
I make
bigger,
it
working
bigger?
memory?
I don't increase my working memory, I take things out of my
Mhm.
working memory.
Okay. So written capture systems, something that is a quick capture, right? Because again, the more clicks, the more things you need to open, all of that kind of stuff, right? So very, very quick capture.
That's why I hate being on
Yeah.
Zoom because they're recording
Mhm.
space.
So
Google Meets is built in.
meeting notes managed externally. So one of the things that I'm seeing that a lot of my people are enjoying are things like Fathom and having that recorded and summarized and, all of that kind of stuff, and decision logs, right? These are the decisions that I've made and somebody can keep track of. One of your VAs can keep track of. This is what we've decided. These are the to-dos. So you need to make a decision about when you do quick capture, what are the things that go into your notebook? And they don't deserve to go into ClickUp because there's no due date attached to it, right? Like it's like I'm writing this down because I need to make this phone call today. I need to return this phone call
Right.
today. I need to pick up groceries today. I need to pick up cat food today. I need to, like you're not going to put that into ClickUp because if you put that stuff into ClickUp, it'll overwhelm you with how many tasks you're going to put into your to-do list, right? In your computer. And a computer task list is never ending. There is enough memory to hold hundreds of thousands of tasks, and you want to be really clear about what you hold in the app, right? And in the computer. So things like that have due dates, monitoring progress on projects, so project management, that have different due dates, because
Yes.
once those due dates are in, you can let your working memory forget about it, because once the due date comes up, it's going to pop up and you're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I scheduled to do that today." Right? And you don't have to manage it. Lots of stuff there. And then time management was the last one, right? And I know you're already doing this. VA managed calendar, hard time buffers, like hard stops, external deadline tracking. One of the other things that I also recommend is making sure that there are buffers and transitions between meetings, right? Time for you to
Yeah.
go to the bathroom, go get some water, go get some coffee, just stand up and stretch, or just sit in your chair and do a wet noodle and breathe. The things that you might want to try, right? And I don't know if you can do this with whatever it is that you smoke, okay? Is can you shorten the cigarette? The longer the
Maybe, but
cigarette
it's never
is, the more
worth it.
time it's going to
Yeah.
be, right? But there's also wastage there if you start breaking.
I mean, yeah, it's also just like not. I've really been toying with like some other things that I think will help with a bunch of these habits because it's like it's really time. It's enough already. I would like to be able because like I steal my time in that way. It's too easy to do all the dopamine stuff together. And like I create these pockets in which I'm enabling time to slip really easily. If I didn't do that, I would be really, 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 really productive because I have so much stuff set up around me to ensure that I'm really
Mhm.
productive. And if I'm sitting down for one focus hour a day, I'm already getting literally everything I need to get done. The only reason it doesn't get done is because like 5 times 10 minutes does not equal 50 minutes at all. My brain is a problem-solving brain. So, like, I intentionally insert these guardrails. Again, it served a purpose to slow me down to focus on building some of those other
Right.
things. But it doesn't serve that purpose
Yeah.
anymore. Now it's just slowing
Yeah.
me down.
So here's a thought, okay? Several ideas that you might want to think about. Can you gamify your workday where the cigarette is a reward?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Right? And you can get to your cigarette faster, the faster you get shit done that you don't wanna do.
I also was thinking like there has to be the as you were speaking earlier about the calendars and the
Mhm.
buffers. So what we do is we have hard anchors and soft anchors. Hard anchors are things that like do not change. You have to pick up your
Yeah.
kids at the bus at this
Yep.
time. It has to stay at
Client
that time.
meetings.
Yeah, and I was thinking like if there has to be a gamification element of like something that pops up across all your screens. There's no reason that my Google phone and my Google Chrome like whatever and my Chromebook can't all have the same like it is time like pop
Mhm.
up and really like gamify some of the transition elements, which tend to be the most challenging for me, and then reverse that to like gamify getting things done. And then you don't even probably, I mean, the my assumption, hypothesis, you don't need the cigarette when you got all so much good
Mhm.
dopamine. Then you might like instead get up and clean the house because that's fun dopamine too.
So, gamifying things, I still haven't found a task app or anything that's gamified well, that's not
Me neither.
complicated, like, it's
I started
really
building one. It'll happen
difficult,
eventually.
right? Like, I wish there was something that was gamified and it looked beautiful instead of all this pixelated kinda stuff, and something you could add on a desktop where, you know it's like, "Oh my god, you finished these tasks. You get this sword for your battle, your next boss battle, right? Like, you won this." Like, I would love to see stuff like that, but,
Yeah.
it would need to be integrated. I don't know, maybe we should collaborate on that and figure that out. So that is all that's all the leadership piece, that's a developmental piece in terms of which executive functions you need to be focusing on, and then there's a burnout risk assessment in terms of
Ooh, yay. What am I
energy
at?
management and everything. Well, you have to admit, look, I have to admit, like, I didn't take into consideration I tried not to think about
No, that's
right?
important.
Because I was like, "Okay, what would be most helpful to Avi in terms of understanding this report and how she might use it for her clients," right? So I looked at kind of like what you do and guessed at some of the like the business processes and things that you have in place and where your strengths are and all of that, right? So managing VA team operations and workflows, that came up as a possible friction point, likely the most
Massive.
exhausting part of the role for you. Takes burns up a lot of energy
Terrific.
very quickly, right? So we'll talk about what burns your energy very quickly in the high friction points. Following up on client deliverables is high friction. Okay, you love the
Yeah.
conversations.
And that's a problem that I can't
You
get rid of.
you have to.
There's no escaping that.
You have to, right?
Mhm. I can hand
Yeah.
off operations. I have done
Yeah.
so. Can't, and it really, you said something earlier about reliability and like external
Mhm.
credibility. That is I'm extremely
Yeah.
credible until it comes to a deadline, to a deliverable. And that is like a real credibility
Mhm.
destroyer.
Okay. Yeah.
Responsiveness.
Yeah. So setting strategic direction is not a problem for you. Very, very easy. Client intake and discovery calls. You're good at it. You like doing it, but it gets energy chomping for you when you have too many, right? So you've got to be really careful about how many you schedule in a day or in a week or whatever, and that they're appropriately spaced out, right? Because you're great at it because you're a good talker, you're personable, you know what you're talking about, all of that kind of stuff. But too many and it'll start draining you. Let's see, following up on client deliverables, we talked about that. Very high friction, easy to drop without external tracking and urgency. Okay. Content creation and marketing, hard, and it often stalls before starting because you stop at the idea as opposed to following through with, "Oh, I figured out the idea, gave me a lot of dopamine and everything." I may have written a draft and then it gets just you get distracted because
Totally.
you don't wanna go into LinkedIn, you don't wanna post here, you don't wanna post there, so do the thing, hand it off to your VA and say, you know, "It's fine, check the grammar, check the spelling, schedule it, done. I don't ever wanna look at it again." The problem with that is when people start commenting on it, it's gonna be hard for you to comment back because you're like, "Oh, that's old story. Like, I've already processed this. It feels good. Now you're dragging me back to something that doesn't interest me anymore." Right? So
That's why you need a full content stream.
so
You told to
so
do your
you're
engagement.
gonna
Literally, this report is like selling a listo. I'm like, why do
yeah.
I never
Yeah.
speak? I don't need
So
to talk about anything ever
so
again.
part of commenting for you is gonna
Yep.
what's gonna work better for you is talking about ideas. Because what bores you is, "Oh my god, that's such a great comment, and I hadn't" like, all that surfacey stuff is really hard for you. But talking about the ideas and talking about it in a way that's like oh, I hadn't thought of that, and since you brought that up, this is what's bringing up for me too. What do you think? Right? So conversations are easier for you than superficial kind of, I have to comment within an hour when LinkedIn, we know when this post goes up. Sales and business development calls, a strength. Okay. So based on your scores, this is something that you find really, really energizing and it plays to your strengths. Building systems and SOPs. Intellectually appealing because it's problem solving, but operationally draining to execute. And we've talked about this a couple of times.
Yeah.
Here's one. And
That
the drift is justified because we're being productive. It is productive. We're creating something, we're doing something, we're
Right.
developing something, but is it right?
That's like
So there's some discussion on burnout risk in this section. And this one, yours doesn't feel as dire as someone else's because you've got so many supports around you and you have a lot of strengths that are actually buffering you from that. So it's going to happen a lot slower for you, which is a good thing because your metacognition and being able to observe yourself. I get the sense that you're able to feel when you're headed in that direction and you'll do what you need to do to pull back.
Yes, and also if I didn't get into that situation, then I wouldn't have to, which is my preference.
Yep. Yeah.
And like it's never as bad as you think it is, and there's always a solution to be found and there's always something to do. If you don't look at it, then it's not gonna look
Yeah.
at you. I think I heard somewhere, what did I like, you have to treat your money nicely because otherwise it's not gonna wanna hang out with you. Like, you wouldn't date
Yeah.
somebody who, like, doesn't look at you, or,
Right.
like, talk to
Right.
you or interact with you or like you. So, money doesn't wanna do that
Yeah,
with you either. Like,
exactly,
"Ew, you're gross.
exactly.
Bad
Yeah,
partner."
exactly. So, and then, I go into a little bit more detail around each of the 10 leadership capacities. And the thing I like about this part of the report that I'm kind of really proud of is talking about what it might look like to the people that you're leading so that you can be aware of, because we're not good at that. Me being autistic and everything, like I have that challenge of understanding other people's emotions and how they might be experiencing me, right? And that totally goes over my head. And I'm good at it if it's one-on-one and I'm doing coaching or I'm doing therapy, but if I don't have my therapy or coaching hat on, it's much harder for me to do. So, and then and I think you would really, really like this. Okay, so here's the appendix, okay? And the appendix, the two questions that I asked, right, were that I thought might be pertinent to you is how can Avi talk to her VA about what she needs? How can she communicate to her VA about what she needs to be best supported in the things that she does and the tasks to delegate? Okay. So there's a whole section on what to offload, right? So it's called What to Offload Task Delegation Guide. So it's a table, and I'm sure that there's a lot of things in here that you've already delegated, but if there's stuff in here that you haven't, consider it. And then, so what's the delegation list? And how does the VA work with your cognitive architecture? Okay, to best support you. So there's all kinds of suggestions there. And then there's the third part of that is what are the structural protocols? So building the VA relationship for maximum effectiveness, right? So in terms of, the goal is to reduce the cognitive overhead of the relationship itself. Okay, because it's not just about the task that the VA needs to do, but the relationship and how do you need to be called out, right? How do you need to be reminded? How do you need somebody to say to you, Avi, hun, like you've put this off for like 3 weeks now, and we're getting to a place where it's getting really urgent. You really need to put time on your schedule to do this. Let's sit down and do that. Right? Figure out your launch pad for this, figure out what your first step is to get you initiated, right? Things like that. So, one of the things, and you probably have this in place, but I'm mentioning this because a lot of founders, this is really helpful for them, is weekly 30-minute business sync time, right? Where are we at? Where are we at with our projects? What's going on this week in terms of all those hard things in the calendar that can't be moved.
Here's the thing. We have that for everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So because it comes back to when I'm working on extra stuff, what am I working on? And they just kind of like let me do my thing. But if I'm supposed to be working on 1, 2, and 3, then I also need to report on that.
Yeah.
Probably only to my EA
Right.
for like the beginning until it gets to something that's relevant to any of the other departments. But the accountability needs to be flipped. You can't just like let me play.
Yeah. So building that relationship and making it comfortable for your EA to come to you and say,
Yeah.
Avi, I really need this from you. Like, I cannot do anything else unless I get this from you. You have to do this. No, we are not going to book anything else. In that time, this is what you're going to do. And how does she communicate that to you? How can she do it firmly, but also kindly and gently? Right?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
kind
Okay.
and gentle.
Well,
I train everyone.
some people need it. So
I know a lot of people really need
here's
it.
how I put it, and I put it in 3 columns, right? What is the structural element, what it looks like, and why it works for this profile, okay? So what is the structural element? Weekly 30-minute sync meetings, video or voice, okay? What it looks like? It looks like reviewing open tasks, discussing priorities, surface blockers, and replenish the context. So replenishing it in terms of, what's the current situation, right? And then why does it work for this profile? Well, because Avi's working memory means the VA should not assume ongoing context is retained between interactions. A brief weekly reset rebuilds shared understanding.
And on the flip side, doesn't overwhelm with iterations because it's a weekly contextual update. Then you kind of see the momentum and how it's building, which to me is very clear. But when you're sharing every micro
Yeah.
step,
Yeah.
confuses everyone.
So usually what I see with VA relationships, right? For companies that don't work with ADHD like you do specifically, it's like, here's your VA, they've got these skills, they've got this tech stack. And then the VA kind of waits for instructions. Right? And they're very good at kind of responding to instructions and here it is and delivering it. They might ask some questions about what it looks like and you'll have more questions on the front end of that relationship than you do, because the VA is learning the founder and the founder is learning the VA and you build that relationship. This is how to be a little bit more intentional about how you build that relationship and the kinds of things that you talk about on the front end. Like I'm surprised actually. Why do you think it is that you have this 30-minute re re sync that happens for your clients, but you don't have one for yourself?
Oh, well, clients 100% have a
Mm.
30-minute check-in. Also, the internal team has a weekly wrap-up where I do update them, but they're updating based on their task board, their priorities, and their list. I'm updating based on like what stood out to me this week. There, which is
What's
fine
interesting to
if
me?
the intention is me. It's fine if the intention is for me to never execute on anything. But if we're talking about wanting to build passive income and like actually executing on things A to Z that are within mine and my EA's capacity, that means that I have to be reporting on it. Like that's how to shift from like being into doing. I have to actually find what it is, put it down. That way my EA can hold me accountable to whatever it is that we're building. It's not individual tasks. It's a project that we're working on that's broken down into all of the tasks and not just like where the wind blows. We can't if the rest of the team isn't doing that, I can't do that either.
Yep.
And there's no freaking way I would ever let them
Right.
do that.
Right.
Yeah, it just never occurred to me okay, here's what's really interesting that's happening in this conversation and why I'm so excited about this.
So those are
My
just before we
job.
get to that, right? Like I've covered pretty
Yeah.
much everything that I wanted to cover. And there's like all kinds of other pros in there that you can kind of, peruse and more
I'm
detail and
excited to
stuff,
read
right?
it. I'm gonna read all the
Like
words.
it's a fun read. Like a lot of people after they do their feedback session, they read it and I'm like, oh my God, you totally nailed me. Like how did you do this? And it's like, yeah, this is 25 years of pattern recognition. This is what you get, right?
what I'm looking at.
So now
Yeah.
tell me what you're thinking, what your thoughts are. Why are you enjoying this? Like, what value are you
Okay.
tell me
What
all
I
the
absolutely
things,
love,
all the things.
and although I am a client as a business, I am the VA.
Mhm.
And my job is to make sure that I am showing up the way I need to be showing up so that execution is showing up properly for the client, who is going to be somebody like me. And we're going to use me as the guinea pig to break down all the profiles. But the person I'm teaching, the person I'm training, the person I'm laying expectations on is the
Mhm.
VA or the DA or the EA or
Right.
whatever you want to call them. It's the support person. I do not do the same for the client
Mhm.
intentionally. Your breakdown is very similar to what my breakdown would be,
So
but I'm not talking about the
mhm.
person. I'm talking about the business, the systems, and the operation. And I'm not touching you. I might notice things or not notice things about you none of my business, not
Mhm.
touching it, not relevant from that's not what you're asking me for. But there's genuine gaps when we recognize, but like we listen and we don't judge. We recognize and don't diagnose, right? It doesn't make a difference what the thing
Mhm.
is. But if I knew what the thing was because the client knew and was willing to take that on and understood where the gaps were, and we could all be talking in a joint
Mhm.
language, it would simplify everything that we do like a
Mhm.
hundredfold. Because right now we're like, there's a layer of protection almost of like coddling because it's not my job to coach you. It's not my job to work with you to build your resilience. It's not my job that none of that. And as hard as it is for me, like it's
Yeah.
hard, but
That's
it's
not
not
your
my job.
business. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is like a massive strength for me because I'm going to now look at the report and see exactly where anything that I struggle with has been plugged in. I'm going to be able to see exactly where I haven't
Mhm.
plugged something in. I'm going to be able to identify the exact gaps. I'm going to be able to implement on them like within 2 or 3 days and just like turbocharge what we're already doing because somebody who is looking for specific, it's diagnostic.
Mm. Mhm.
And if that's there's a really massive value to having something that is diagnostic and not
Mhm.
medical. It's just like these are the patterns
Yeah.
of your it's not good, bad,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pretty or
It's
ugly.
it's
It's
like a
just
manual. Here's
strengths and
what this
weaknesses.
thing
It's
can
a
do
manual.
and what you shouldn't do, and don't put it in the tub of water, and like yeah.
Right. And often I can give somebody a whole manual to their
Mhm.
business and it will be tailor made to them with their strengths and their weaknesses and so on. But if they don't have the manual to themselves, then my manual is just pretty.
Mm. But it's not just pretty.
And like, yeah, you can still delegate.
It's
Yes, you'll still move the
it would
business
be a good
forward.
dovetail,
Yes.
right? Like, in terms of, a joint can only happen if you've got 2 pieces that are dovetailed together, right? So it
Yes.
makes it stronger. So yeah, I can see
Yeah.
the value that it would give you, because then you could just take the report and be like, oh, so these are the recommendations, and we'll keep these in mind. They are not written in stone, and we will iterate, and this is where we're
Right.
going to start. Because what I find with the report, right, and how I use it in coaching, is that it eliminates about 5 sessions on the front end when you're asking all the questions, when you're seeing what works and what
Mhm.
doesn't work. And sometimes you don't ask the question, and they will not give you the information because the question wasn't asked, and they don't know that they need to give you the information. So
Right.
I always start all my coaching relationships with this. Like, this is a non-negotiable, right? Because
Right.
I know we're going to eliminate the first 5 to 10 sessions here, because I have got so much information
Yeah.
from you that I don't need to guess, and we are hitting the ground running, right? So
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you learned about yourself? I mean, you're gonna learn a lot more when you actually read the report, but
Yes.
what was
Surprising. I don't know that anything was
Mhm,
surprising. Working memory. Yeah, like I literally forget that it's my biggest problem, which probably
mhm,
tracks,
mhm,
right? Like I forget that that's my
mhm,
challenge. Even like I'm sitting in this space if I were to perceive my environment, this is not a suitable work environment. There's like trash and stuff all over the place, but I'm just going to only do this thing. And I'm like that with my memory as well, because I kind of have to be, but like also I don't have to be if I don't put myself into the situations in which I have to be. But I'm not saying that with judgment. It's just like I've identified so many of the gaps already, and I've implemented so many systems already that like earlier, I'm 2/3 of the way there. That doesn't fucking help me. It just doesn't help. Like, hooray. I've discovered things and like that's cool. But when you're living the life, it doesn't feel helpful.
Friction still feels like friction.
Yes, exactly. Friction still feels like friction. And I can approach it from the systems perspective all the live long day, but I still need to be able, I can't delegate my own work. Where this is like, I'm really excited for myself, which is fun. I'm excited to look at the report. I'm excited for myself as a business person because this solves a problem for me that is fucking massive, wherein I have put myself in a spot where I do not tell people this is what is happening. This is the pattern. When there is a something that needs to be solved, I will solve that problem. And in solving that problem, we will surface patterns and we will discuss kind of what is going on and how to do differently in the future. But it is reactive. It will always be reactive. I'm not your coach. I'm not your guide. I'm not your mommy. I'm barely your cheerleader. Like, it's not that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to be like your problem's worst nightmare. Sometimes your problem is you. And if you don't have insight into that, I'm not the right soldier for you. And when you do have insight in such like an objective way, because there's so much shame associated with all of this. I'm cool with it because I built my business on being trash at those things. So I'm comfortable with saying that. And I'm actually really excited to publish this. Like, what does it look like? Because then you get to see your full session, which is cool. Are you?
Yeah,
No.
I'm totally okay with that.
Okay, because
I'm
I would love for
guessing,
people to see what it looks like,
what it sounds
and
like.
also like that radical. Because I'm not taking accountability. I don't blame myself.
These are
I have
facts.
never.
These are facts that you're stating.
These are facts. I have never been 10 minutes late to a podcast episode ever. Max 7 minutes, which is like beyond my window of acceptable, which is 4 minutes maximum. Like when you're hitting really unacceptable is 7 minutes. I've never been 10 minutes late. But this was the right time to show up 10 minutes late because it was really honest. And I had a couple of different options because I looked not exactly like this about 30 seconds before our call. And I decided to like dunk my face in ice water and like, at least like put on clothing. I was wearing like a cutoff tee. We have to just put a little bit of standard in place to ourselves when we're interacting with other people, right? But like I left it too late and then I was late. It just happened. And I need to know that the person that I'm interacting with understands that it happens. And also, I need to know that the key to it not happening in the future is understanding why and putting things in place. And everything was in place. My team has been calling me since 9:45. Calling me, texting me, calling me, texting me, texting me. Where are you? We have this coming up. Half hour before, 15 minutes before, 10 minutes before, 5 minutes before, plus 2 phone calls, plus text message. I had every opportunity. So when we're talking about like taking accountability for yourself, I had every opportunity and still I didn't do it. And that means a few things. It means that I damaged my credibility with you. Maybe I had an opportunity to rebuild it and you're very understanding. So maybe it's not going to be hugely damaging.
No,
but
we're done, Aubrey. Like after this call, we're never going to talk again. But so this is like one of the things that I talk to my coaching clients about, right? Like when you fall short, right? It's not a time for you to kind of be like, oh my God, I suck and I'm terrible and I keep doing this. Why do I keep doing this? Right. When you think about, things being an experiment, right? When things don't go well, bad days are good data. in the sense that you get to sit back and say, what happened here? What was going on that prevented me from showing up on time like I normally do? What got in the way? And you know what? In my report, it says those 3 things are the things that I need to develop. Was one of those things the thing that fell off, right? So the report is like, it gives you a more focused place to think about solutions as opposed to, well, what was it? Was it this or that or the other thing? Well, you know what? My hardest, EFs are time management and task initiation, right? Like, and working memory. Like which one of those 3, or was it a combination of 3, right? Because anything that we have a hard time doing, people like, for example, showing up late, right? That could be a time management thing, or it could be something bad happened this morning and my emotional regulation, I wasn't able to access it because I was so stressed out. It could be, you know what? I didn't give myself enough time to transition from this activity to this activity, which is a cognitive flexibility. It was too fast. I need to give myself more time to move between obligations, right? It could be working memory. Oh, you know what? I started this thing that I thought would only take 5 minutes. Like, how many times have we done that? I'm just, you know what? I'm early. It's just going to take me 5 minutes to do this thing. I'm going to do this thing. And the next thing you know,
That particular flavor of late
yeah.
irks me
And then
so
you're
much.
10 minutes, 15 minutes.
You were
Yeah,
early and then
exactly.
late, early late.
Yeah, exactly. So what do? Right? I'm like, okay, it's going to take me 5 minutes, but I know from experience that I'm not going to be able to track that time. So I set the alarm on my oven, right? And I'm like, I'm just going to, clean my kitchen for 5 minutes because I have a little bit of extra time. And when that oven alarm goes off, I'm putting my ass in the chair and I'm going to have this conversation, right? So, yeah, so when you know your mix, you can be a little bit more focused on what the potential solutions are instead of just reaching in the dark for it.
And then the extra piece that's super complimentary for me is how other people perceive you. Because my side is, how are you misperceiving this person? That's my educational piece. How are you looking at your ADHD client and experiencing them, and what is the intention behind it? How can you do your own reframing? That does not take care of the
Right.
client piece. And at the end of the day, I will be as understanding as I can be. But if you show up to every meeting dysregulated, absolutely not. We don't do meetings dysregulated. It's not the VA's job. The VA's job is to
Right.
execute. So if you show up and you're a little bit like, all right, let's go. Like, come on, this is taking too long. I have grace for that.
Yeah.
100%. If you show up and you're like, I swear to fucking God, if I need to tell you morons one more time to get this done and do it before the speed at which your money would be refunded is like,
Yeah.
no. Because if you need to go do something, go find a coach, go find a therapist, go find a mommy, make a friend and get a hug. And I have compassion for you, but it's
Right.
not my job.
Right.
And there's so many people who really want to do well for themselves, and they want to do better for themselves, and they want to live the life that they imagine that they could be able to live if only all of this stuff wasn't so hard. And sometimes also, if they're hyper intelligent, then they get caught in like talk therapy, and they kind of reach the end of the line of where certain interventions are really helpful for them without additional information. And this additional information is like business 101. You need to know this. Whether you have ADHD or not, everybody
Yeah,
should know
because
this.
everybody has executive
You need
functions.
to
It's
know.
all about cognitive
I
performance.
mean, hopefully, if you have none of them, you're in really big
Mhm.
trouble and possibly brain dead.
Maybe. And that's an interesting point that you're making, right? This is not just about ADHD, it's about cognitive performance, right? And about executive functions, which is everybody owns them. If you have a prefrontal cortex, you've got executive functions, and everybody's are developed at different rates, right? So it becomes a really, really good learning and development piece. Like, for example, in a corporate organization, like, one of the things, some of my clients actually bring me their performance reviews, and I can map, like, I can look at it and kind of be like, I know about executive functions enough to look at this and say, okay, this is what's happening. And these recommendations that they're making for development, these don't fit. This is not going to help you. You need to be going to your manager and asking about this, right? Yeah, because what they might be recommending as solutions may not actually be addressing the needs of what that performance or what that behavior they're describing, right?
Absolutely. And like, again, I can
Yeah.
intervene when there
Mhm.
is friction. But otherwise, like, it doesn't apply to the rest of your life. This is only
Right.
your business. Could you theoretically learn from the modeling of what we're doing to apply to your life?
You know what?
Like exceptional people do
Yeah,
things all the
this
time.
like when you look at it from an executive function perspective, right? You can map it to any behavior, okay? Anything that requires your brain. So
Yeah.
I've compared and contrasted between two couples who have ADHD, like a couple, two members of a couple who have ADHD, and I've done couples therapy with them because here's your profile, here's her profile, and this is where you're, and oh, by the way, you're like both of you really suck at like financial management because you share these executive functions, which causes you to do the
Mhm.
same things, right? Which the you're both blind to that thing, right? So you've got to put some things into place that protect your credit cards, that protect your money, and all of that. And much better understanding in terms of, oh, I didn't realize her brain worked like that, and figuring out, that kind of stuff. So I've used it for couples, I've used it for parents who are trying to understand their children, right? And I only work with like, kids who are like in university or who are in the workforce, right? Yeah, so if any task or thing that you're doing out in the world and you have any goal including romantic relationships and all of that that require prefrontal cortex, executive functions is what it's all about.
Yeah. And people ask me all the time, like, do you only work with people with ADHD? And I'm like, well, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur ideator, there's a higher
Mhm.
likelihood than most that you have
Yeah.
ADHD. But frankly, it doesn't make a difference to me at all whether you have ADHD or not. It's just neurodivergent
Mhm.
coded. So it's built for neurodivergence, meaning it's ultimately flexible. So it works for
Mhm.
everyone, right? Like we've been talking, the disability crowd has been talking to us for 30 years about ramps and how everyone can use a ramp, but not everyone can use
Mhm.
stairs.
Mhm.
Concept. Everybody can use
Yeah.
some that's infinitely
Right.
customizable. And when we focus less on the label and more on the capacity of the
Mm.
element, it removes the judgment, it removes the shame, it empowers you to actually do something and not just be like, "Yeah, I have time blindness." Yeah, okay. And so fucking what? So you're never gonna have any friendships? Everyone's gonna feel disrespected around
Mhm.
you? You're gonna be late to pick up your kids from school every single No. No. You have to figure
Right.
it out.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm seeing like quite a lot right now is the dysregulation from the use of AI, right? And what that's doing to people in the organizational context because everything is moving faster and there's this thing that is happening where people are like, I'm a little ADHD and I've developed ADHD because of all these things and technology and all that kind of stuff. First of all, you can't develop ADHD, but you can. Remember how I said at the beginning of your report, right? Is if you are stressed out and you are not managing your stress, your executive function scores are all going to drop and you're going to have a hard time doing all the stuff, right?
That is so interesting because for me, the rise of AI has been very regulating. Things now move at my pace. I'm doing great.
You love it.
Everything around me
Yeah.
can match my mental speed. And like
Mhm.
when I'm using AI, I'm
Yeah.
reading the output as it comes out and engaging and interacting and changing and it's working at the
Yeah,
speed that I'm working.
because
And it's
yeah,
so
because
fun.
problem
But
solving.
that means that it's leaving most
Right.
people behind. They must be
But
going
problem
crazy.
solving is your strength, right? I have other ADHD clients
Right.
who use AI and they are completely overwhelmed by it because they don't have
Right.
they're not processing. Because if you think about it, the human brain cannot match the speed of AI. It can't, right? And then add on top of that the reality that AI's output is inconsistent, it's hallucinatory, it's overly confident, and sometimes it's just outright wrong. So not only is it giving you lots of information, but it's presenting you with information that sounds very confident that might not even be accurate, right? So
And that is my exact strength, is
yes.
sniffing out
Yeah.
that type
Yeah.
of inconsistency, that
Mhm.
type of friction is exactly
Yeah.
what I love.
But I think you're using AI very differently. I think you're using AI as a thinking partner, and you're not using it as something that is replacing your thinking or going beyond your thinking, right? Because
I'm way
you
too strong
you
for that. If I
yeah.
don't understand what you're
Yeah,
talking about, no
exactly,
conversation.
like, I don't know what that means, and you know what? Give me some research on that. I wanna learn, right?
Yeah, like,
Clearly, it's
what are you
something I
even
need to
talking
learn
about?
about, right? So, you're an SME, and you know exactly what subject matter expertise you have, right? And you are the final arbiter of what the SM, like what the subject matter expertise actually looks like. So you're able to suss out when AI gives you something to say, because I've done it many, many times. I'll tell AI and I'm like, you
Right.
know what? This is
Like,
you're
"You're wrong.
wrong.
That's
Go
wrong."
back to the research because this is what's emerging in the research and go pull that
Yeah.
stuff too. And then it'll
What are you
and
based on
right.
all of
And then it'll
1980? You haven't read the
and
2016?
then it'll come back and they're like, "Oh, you were right. I stated it overconfidently. You're right. It is emerging and here's what they're saying and all of this." And I'm like, "Yeah." Right? So when you're a subject matter expert and you're using it for research and like you have something to compare it with, that I think is a strength. But it's,
Using it without that,
yeah,
I feel
and
like
even
can
without
be the
that,
shit
it
fail.
is it is
It doesn't
overwhelming,
even
like,
stop
people
me.
are being asked to move very, very quickly, but they ca and the output of AI is unbelievably fast, but it's also not reliable, so human brains are processing the output at a slower pace, double checking, double doing doing the work over again on output that they can't keep up with, right?
Right. Which is very interesting. It's also why I can only like, I can my AI is specifically Claude, gives me
Mhm.
flags. You've been here
Yeah.
for 2 hours, you've been for 4 hours,
I think you need a break.
because yeah, I don't feel like I
Right,
need a break. It is so
right.
fun. I will go
Mhm.
all day, but chill out. You're using your brain very, 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 very fast, and it feels fun, but, like, I'm sure that I can overdose on
Right.
thinking.
So this is,
Not sure what that looks like, but I'm
yeah,
able to.
so this is again reward drift, right? You drift towards the thing that feels
Yeah.
better, but if you do that
So
too much, it is actually detrimental, right? And hyperfocus is like that too. Like, I mean, a lot of people talk about, ADHD superpowers and stuff, but if you use those superpowers too often and too much,
it's not a superpower.
it's a double
I hyper
yeah,
focused on the wrong
yeah.
guy for 4 years.
There
What do
you
you
go.
mean a superpower?
Right? Hyperfocus without boundaries is a bad thing,
It's
task,
terrible.
like pattern recognition without boundaries, it's detrimental, right?
Even hyper focus on, like, the pursuit of feeling
Mhm.
okay, so then you self-medicate, and you go all over the map, and you're mixing this and mixing that, and, you really are physically endangering yourself
Yeah.
to mentally reprieve yourself, and
Yeah.
that's
So
scary.
clearly we could talk a lot forever and
Forever and
ever.
ever. Okay,
So
so a couple of things.
yeah.
First of all, I'm very excited to receive the report. Secondly, what I would like to do is I have yet to do a strategy call on myself
Mhm.
for a list out. So I would like to do my own strategy call on myself and overlay your report with my report and see what is
Mhm.
happening, because I don't quite know. But I'm a big fan. You know those anatomy books, those kindergarten anatomy books with like the
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
your
yeah, yeah, yeah,
overlay of like
yeah,
the
yeah.
system? That's my favorite way of looking at something. And for me, I have been missing the bottom layer for
Mhm.
clients because I'm not sending you to coaching or therapy or
Mhm.
something. This like piece is something that is so clearly
Mhm.
missing. Or I mean, it's doable without, but is so much stronger with. So I want to do that. Secondly, I would love to cut this as like a therapy episode, like just,
feedback session.
people have been really enjoying that kind of like voyeuristic in on the thing. So I'm happy to do it for the people. We'll cut out a couple of things, mentions of nipples.
The windshield trips. Maybe the
Yeah,
cigarette.
yeah.
I don't know. This is definitely gonna be like one of those restricted or R-rated episodes or whatever.
Yeah, adult language for sure. Probably also adult themes. Who knows? But we'll scrape for anything objectionable. But if you don't like cussing, it's not the episode for you, probably. I'm super jazzed because I've been doing these like onboarding sessions that have strategy and operations combined. It's not the perfect combo because there's another element missing of like who the person is. I would really love to do like a personal business strategy combo that gives you like a 360-degree view of where you're at. And a lot of people who are working in corporate are not going to need, like, I'm not going to be relevant for everyone, but you will be. And it would super strengthen the way I'm able to serve people.
Okay.
So I would love to think about that, how we can kind of package those things. I don't even really need you to bring me into anyone unless there's like something that where it's like a perfect fit. But I would really like to bring you into everyone. Even if it's just like
some kind of collaboration. Yeah.
You offer with us.
Yeah, maybe it needs to be like some kind of enough information for you to get that personal side, but not so much of what is actually in the report. Like maybe when you read your report, you can say,
Right. Like I would love the
Yeah.
person to do the report.
So
And then we get the information
we can
we
do
need.
like a shortened.
They could choose to share the whole thing with me if they feel like it. But the services that they're getting when they're thinking about this would be a person who's like has a VA, had a VA, wants to get a VA, is like setting themselves up for doing it properly and like it's they're doing it once and for all. And they, from the VA perspective, setting you up with the use strategy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's discuss that. I feel like I need some time to think about what that might look like. Right. And then you can think about it too when you're looking at the report, because I think the report, there's pieces in it that we wouldn't need to do for you, right? Like what are the basic things that you would need to be able to work well with, or to set up that relationship between the VA and the individual, not just the business, but the relationship part.
Like specifically how others perceive you.
Yeah. Okay. So
thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Okay. I'm glad I did it because I was thinking about it and I'm like, I think this would be really helpful for Avi to have. So
for sure. I loved it. Really, really fun. Also, I just, like I said, got back from the sisters trip. So we've been listening to couples counseling podcasts just because like they're voyeurs. And I'll go along with you.
Just because they twisted my arm to go along with it.
Yeah. I'm like, listen, I'll enjoy it, but I definitely don't seek these things out. I need all the capacity for my clients and their nonsense. Amazing. Thank you so much. Perfect.
This was fun.
Thank you. So fun. Join the conversation. Follow, like, and share the ADHD podcast.